Right, so the answer number 1 is multiplication. Okay, so who can walk me through the first problem, number 2? Kayla, go ahead. Let's do that at the end, because now I do want to start teaching people how to cross-cancel. I would say about half the students know how to cross-cancel. I would like everybody to know how eventually. But let's walk through the long way first, okay? Mm-hmm. So we're going to multiply the numerators. 3 times 2, that gives us 6. And then what? Right, so we're going to multiply the denominators now. 7 times 3 is 21. And we can simplify that, so that simplifies to what? 2/7. Yes, 2/7. Now, up until now, I told you not to worry about cross-canceling. There is a method to cross-cancel. Kayla, how'd you cross-cancel?
There's the 3's are the same, so I did 3 divided by 3 is 1, and then other 3 divided by 3 is 1.
Okay.
So
Very good. So we're gonna cancel out the 3's, because essentially what we just did the long way is we had a common factor between the numerator and the denominator. It was 3. So we multiplied the numerator and the denominator by 3, but then later we simplified the fraction by dividing out 3. So if we're going to multiply by a factor and then divide it out later to simplify it, we can skip that step altogether by cross-canceling. So this 3 becomes a 1 because we have a 3 down there that became a 1. Do you guys understand? So 7 times 1 is 7. 1 times 2 is 2. Do you see how we skip to 2/7 without having to simplify? If you don't understand that, hopefully some repetition, you might pick up on it. Yes, Kayla? As soon as she gets back. Okay? Now, who can do number 3 for me? Somebody haven't heard from me yet? Kalila, go ahead. We can do that later. Let's go ahead and do this first. Okay. Now, can I simplify that fraction at all? Okay. Now, it's not a coincidence. We didn't have anything in the numerator and the denominator, a factor that we could cross-cancel. And because we had nothing to cancel out, we got a fraction that was already in simplest form. Do you guys understand? Okay. Now, sometimes you might cross-cancel and you might have overlooked a factor. And so you might get to something that you still have to simplify. But if you cross-cancel all the factors, you get right to the fraction in simplest form. Okay? Who can walk us through? That's kind of 2 and 3 worked out for us. Who can walk us through number 4? Somebody I haven't heard from yet. Lola, go ahead.
So since 50 is a whole number, you're going to have to make the denominator of it 1.
Right, excellent. So this becomes 50 over 1.
So 50 and 10 are
10. Well, let's do it the old long way.
So
Uh-huh.
1 times 10 is 10.
Okay, excellent.
Then 50 times 9
Is going to be this.
400.
400. Well, 5 times 9 is what?
450.
And then put the 0 on it, so 450. Okay, and then we know we can simplify this, which is going to be what?
So it's 45.
Okay, so that's going to equal 45. Now, you can skip all these bigger numbers if you know how to cross-cancel. You should have seen right away that 50 has a factor in common with what's in the denominator, right? 10. But if we rewrote 50 as 2 numbers, 2 factors, we could rewrite 50 as 10 times 2, right? Isn't 50 the same as 10 times 2? Yeah. Okay, and because now I have this...
What? No.
I'm sorry, my bad. 10 times 5. Shh. I didn't get much sleep last night. Give me a break. Okay, 10 times 5. Shh. And so now because I have a 10 in the numerator and the 10 in the denominator, those become 1. So now I have 1 times 5 times 9, which is 45. 1 times 1, which is 45 over 1, which is going to be 45. So some of you guys already know cross-canceling. That's very familiar to you. If you don't, and this is still confusing for you, just worry about using the old-fashioned method we first learned. Eventually, we would like to see cross-canceling. Jayla, can you walk me through this last problem? Right, we're going to convert mixed numbers to improper fractions. So what's the first mixed number going to become? 20 over 9. Very good. And what's my second fraction going to become? 9 over 5. Okay. And then what do we get back when we simplify this? Go ahead and multiply it. Let's do it the long way first, and we'll talk about cross-canceling later. Right, so we get 180 over what? 45. And what is that simplified to? 4. Now, instead of getting to this, we can get rid of some things right off the bat. You notice we have a 9 right here, right? So the 9s, those can become 1s right off the bat. But now I also have something else going on. I got a 20 and a 5. And 20 and 5, well, 20 is basically 5 times 4, right? And so I can actually cancel out. Make the 5 down here a 1. That becomes 1. So now 1 times 4 times 1 gives me 4 in the numerator. And then 1 times 1 gives me 1 in the bottom. So 4 over 1 equals 4. Okay? If you understand this, 180 over 45 equals 4, and the cross-canceling is confusing, don't worry about that for now. So here are the solutions. Okay? Any questions? Yep. You got one person ahead of you when they get back. Who asked Kayla? After Kayla. Okay, so moving on. Here's today's lesson. And I do show it a little differently in the book. Let me go ahead and read this since I'm using this as the video I'm going to upload. What you'll learn: to divide fractions and mixed numbers and to solve problems by dividing. Today's vocabulary word is reciprocal. Why learn this? When you work with measurements, you will often need to divide fractions and mixed numbers. The ruler, I should say, above now that's messed everything up. Did I fix it? Yeah. Nice. Okay. The ruler above shows there are 4 in 3 holes. Okay? So 3 divided by 3/4 equals 4. Notice that 3 times 4 over 3, or 4/3, also equals 4. The number 3/4 and 4/3 are reciprocals. 2 numbers are reciprocals if their product equals 1. So 3/4 times 4/3, 3 times 4 gives me 12. 4 times 3 gives me 12. 12 divided by 12, or 12/12 is equal to 1. So anytime you have a reciprocal, fractions where the numerator and the denominators are flipped, if you multiply them, it gives you back 1. Okay? To divide a fraction, you multiply by its reciprocal. So remember I said that of the 4 operations for fractions, multiplying was the easiest, and then the next easiest was what? Divide, because there's just one extra step from multiplication. Now, before I get into the key concept, if you guys take a look at this ruler, do you see where the blue double-sided arrows end? They end where? They end here at 3. Okay? And it takes how many of them? It takes 4 of them. So here, this is 3/4. You guys understand that that's 3/4. This would be 1 whole. Okay? This would be half of a whole. And this half of a half is going to be 1/4. So I got 3, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4/4 make 1 whole, but this blue arrow here, the first one, from here to here is 3/4. 1, 2, and 3. 3/4. So do you guys see how the measurement's 3/4? And if I have 4 of them, it gets me to 3. So 3 times 3/4, you can verify that, multiply that out. It gives me, that will give me 3. If we go down here and look at this other key concept, I wrote this out a little bit more. Is there a question about this? Uh-huh.
So, on the homework, it always says you might need a model to help you, and I don't know.
I'm going to say, as far as the assignment from last night, what you need to know for the quiz next week is, what is the sign of my product going to be if I have signed fractions? If you're good with that, don't worry so much about the models. Okay? All right? And then lesson 9, because this is lesson 8. Lesson 9 is, what's the quotient of signed numbers? Today we're talking about the quotient of fractions. Okay? What's the quotient of rationals? What's the sign of the quotient of rationals? So again, we're going to extend that. Kayla?
What is the equal sign with the slash to it again?
Does not equal. So let's talk about that right now. Dividing fractions. So here I show this in a little more detail than the book. Look, we have 3 divided by 3/4. Okay? Now, the only extra step you need that makes it a little more difficult than multiplying fractions is you have to rewrite it as a product. But not just that, you have to rewrite the second fraction. You need to take the reciprocal. And I think from what I've been hearing throughout the day, keep, change, and flip is how you were taught. Flip is the action. That's not a vocabulary word. What you're actually finding is the reciprocal. Do you see that? I had 3/4, 3 divided by 3/4, and now I have 3 times 4/3. Do you guys see that? So I kept this. That was the keep. And then I changed division to multiplication. And then I flipped the fraction. So do you see how it's just one extra step from multiplying? So you keep the first fraction, change the operation, and you take the reciprocal of the second fraction. Do you guys understand? Okay, I have some questions. Yes?
So what you're saying is, for the second step, just change. So first you're dividing 3.
No, I'm changing this into a multiplication, but it's equal to the division.
Oh.
Got it? Kalila?
So it's always it's only providing fractions, like for multiplication. Like if you ever told you to find the reciprocal you'll never say you find the reciprocal for anything but dividing.
You might have to find the reciprocal for something else, so just know that the reciprocal is flipping the numerator and the denominator.
The division will be multiplication, addition will be subtraction. It's always the opposite.
No, let's just think about multiplying and dividing right now. This division of fractions, you're really rewriting it into a multiplication of the first fraction times the inverse, or the reciprocal of the second fraction. Got it? So let's just work a few examples out because you're trying to digest everything at once. I'm walking you through it. We're going to work a problem out, and then I'll let you guys do some more on your own. So here, I can't multiply these off as they are, right? I can't multiply these off as they are. So I got to rewrite this whole number as a what? And how do I make 3 into a fraction? Over 1. So here I got 3 over 1, right? And then 3 over 1, do you see that my fraction, I didn't change it. It's still multiplying by the reciprocal of what I started out with. And then from here, it's just like what we did yesterday. So 3 over 1 times 4/3, multiplying the numerator and denominators, and then I get 12/3. That equals 4. Now, to add in there, what we did about cross-canceling, boom, boom, 4 over 1, 4. If you don't understand the cross-canceling, I'm not too concerned with that. The algebra is just saying this. Hey, I can't ever have a denominator that's 0. That's called undefined. Do you guys remember that? Yeah. Okay, questions?
I understand why you changed the division symbol to the multiplication.
Okay, well, let's work through some examples. So I don't need you to understand it. Just model it in the next example. Here you go. Try that. Keep, change, flip, as I've been hearing throughout the day. Here's the try. When you're done, put your pencils down so we can see what we got, if we got something close. If you're done with the first one, you feel confident, you could go ahead and work on the next ones.
You have to simplify it too.
Try it. We'll talk about it and compare our answers.
Bless you.
Okay, everybody's done with the first example, I'm assuming. Am I wrong? Can I get a volunteer to walk me through the first one? Somebody I haven't heard from yet would be Nice. Go ahead.
First, you're going to change the
Oh, you want to change? Which one are we going to change?
the 5, 6,
Right, the second fraction we're going to change. And what are we going to change it to?
6 over 5.
The reciprocal, which is 6/5. Okay, what else are we going to do?
Then you're going to multiply 6/5 with 2/3.
Right, so we got to change division to multiply. And then what else we got to do? We're going to multiply that to the first fraction, which is just 2/3. Okay? So we're going to multiply by the reciprocal. Okay? And then what does that give us when we simplify this? What's that going to give us?
When we simplify from the 4/5,
I'm not sure why I hear a lot of the noise in the back. I need you guys to pay attention. Go ahead.
the product is 12 over 15, but the simplification version is 4/5.
Right, 4/5. Now, that's correct. You guys got that? Keep 2/3, change, multiply, flip the last fraction. Flip means you interchange the numerator and the denominator. Yes, a day.
You always do that?
That's how you're going to do every single division of fraction problem, yes. Everyone's the same way. The only ones you have to be aware of will come up, and you're going to see it's the same way we handled multiplication. Yep.
Does it matter which one you keep or change? Like,
You always have to change the second one. Don't change the first one. Okay. Now what I need you guys to do, if you haven't already, finish these problems up. Who can walk me through this first problem? A day you want to give it a shot? Go ahead. What do we got first?
So you have to change the division.
Okay, so let's change the division. What's it going to become? Right. And then what else are we doing?
Flip 1/4.
Okay, we're going to flip 1/4, and that's going to give us the reciprocal. What's the reciprocal going to be?
4/1.
Very good. So we got 4/1. And then what else do we have?
Put the 7/8.
So we need to keep the 7/8. So we're keeping the 7/8. We change the operation to multiplication. We flip the fraction to get our reciprocal. And then what does that end up giving us? 28. Very good. Over 8. And now we're not done because this is an improper fraction. So there's a couple ways we can approach this. Did you take it further than this? Can I get somebody to help out a day? Nathan, thank you. Can you go ahead?
So 28 over 8 as a mixed number would be 3 and 4/8, and you can simplify that to 3.5.
And that equals 3.5. Very good. Now let me show you the cross-canceling method. Again, if you're confused on the cross-canceling, don't worry about trying to figure it out just yet. I'm just going to walk you through it. If you look, I have a 4 here and 8. I can rewrite 8. I can rewrite that as 4 times 2, right? And so because I have a 4 up here and because I have a 4 down here, now what I end up with is 7 halves, right? I get 7 halves. And then 7 halves is the same as 3.5. So do you see there's a lot of extra work we do by not cross-canceling? So we multiply by a factor of 4, but then we remove that factor of 4 later. So are we good? Do you have a question about this? Okay. Kayla, you can go ahead When she gets back, we'll get things rolling on that. Okay, the next problem. Who's got this one? Somebody I haven't heard from. Adipoji, go ahead.
Okay, so
Oh, man. Yeah, we're having some technical difficulties. Let's see if we could salvage it. Yes, recover files. Looks like we're in business, ladies and gentlemen. Shh. Okay, Adipoji, go ahead.
So you change the division sign to multiplication.
Okay, so we got multiplication. Okay, go ahead.
Then you keep the 5/8.
5/8 stay the same.
Then you find the reciprocal of 3/4.
Okay, and that's going to be 4/3 is the reciprocal. Very good.
Do I cross cancel?
Let's just go multiply, but then we'll talk about cross-canceling in that.
So 5 times 4 is 20.
20, and then what?
8 times 3 is 24.
So we got 24, and we could simplify that, right?
Yes.
What's that going to be when we simplify it?
10 over 12.
10/12, but we could simplify that further, right? What's that going to be?
5, 6.
5/6. Now, we could have gone straight to 5/6 if we cross-canceled. You might have noticed that we have 8 over here, and 8 is the same as 4 times 2. And so we have a 4 over here, and then we have a 4 over here. And so 5 times 1, because when I cancel that number becomes 1. 5 times 1 is 5, and then 2 times 3 is 6, so 5/6. Okay? Now, who can do this last problem for me? This is kind of tricky, but it's really not. And so, Ade, what I was talking about earlier, sometimes you have to pull some tricks out from multiplying. So, Ade, can you tell me what I would do to fix this? Do you remember?
make the 14 over 1.
Right, so we're going to make that whole number into a fraction. And Jayla, can you finish it up for us? Just walk me through the whole thing now. Mm-hmm. 140 over 7, and we can simplify that. What's that going to be? 20. Very good. Now, you could have jumped straight to 20 if you knew how to cross-cancel. We have 14, which is the same as 7 times 2. And then we see that we can cancel out the 7. And we see that we have 2 times 10 gives me 20 over 1 times 1, which is 20 over 1. That's the same as 20. Okay, Olu?
Wouldn't it work if you cross cancel 1 and 10, would it?
Well, 1 and 10, don't worry about cross-canceling 1s because 1s don't really change anything. Okay? 10 and 1, they're not the same thing. If there's a 10 down here and a 10 up here, that would be cross-canceled. It has to be the same thing.
10 times 1 wouldn't.
Well, that wouldn't change anything anyway. Okay? Try your example and see what happens. All right, but we're going to move along. Okay, now listen to, here's what we got next. Who was asking? Go ahead, Olu. Lola, you can go too. Now, here's what I need you to deal with now, mixed numbers. If I have mixed numbers, again, like I mentioned earlier, and Ade knew the trick and how to apply it, we're going to use the trick again for mixed numbers, right? So we know how to deal with mixed numbers because we dealt with that for multiplying fractions. Now we're going to use the same trick again so we can divide our fractions. Now here's a situation of why I need you guys to label your answers. Let me read this to you. You have space of 9.5 inches on a poster for a row of photos. Okay, we got some photos of posters around here for the election, right? Now each photo is 2 3/4 inch wide. How many photos can fit? Now if you labeled inches on your answer, you're wrong. You're trying to figure out how many what fit on the posters, photos. So you're trying to figure out how many photos fit. So your answer should have photos. Whatever your quantity is, photos. So I'm just trying to remind you, I don't want you guys to lose those points. Make sure you label your units.
Correctly.
Is there somebody that can walk me through this? Somebody I haven't heard from yet? You know who I haven't heard from yet? You're up. Come on, walk me through this.
Nicholas.
Nicholas, come on. Walk me through this. Yeah.
Is there another Nicholas in this class?
Yeah, come on, let's go.
You're smart, aren't you?
Let's go. Shh. What's the first thing I got to do? Come on. Nice. Let's change that mixed number to an improper fraction. Nice. So we got 19 halves. And we're going to divide that by what?
11
Right. That's going to be 11 fourths. And now how do we deal with dividing fractions? Walk me through it.
Okay, so you keep 19 over half.
Right. That we keep.
Instead of dividing, you multiply.
Nice.
And then you flip 4 over 11.
And so that gives us the reciprocal 4 elevenths. Okay, continue. Go ahead.
So that would mean 11 times 2 is 22.
Mm-hmm.
And 19 times 4 would be. Yeah.
9 times 4 is 36. Carry the 3. 4 times 1, 4 plus that, 76. So now go ahead and finish it up. When that person comes back, I don't like having two people in the hallway. Have a seat, please. Have a seat. Have a seat.
You would simplify that to be 3 and.
You're not going to be the next person because you have a hard time following directions. Okay. Finish it up. Go ahead.
You would simplify that to be 3 and 10 over 22. And then
3.
you would simplify that again to be 3 and 5 over 12.
No, not 12.
6.
22 divided by 2 is what? 11ths, right? Now let's look at the cross-canceling. Look, this is the same as 2 times 2. And if we cancel out one of these units, or one of these factors, we get 9 times 2. So I'm gonna show you guys the cross-canceling method over here. 9 times 2 is going to be 38. And then 1 times 11, 38 over 11. And that's going to be 3 times 11 is 33. And 5 11. So do you guys, if you don't understand it, that's the alternative method. Nope. Don't even waste your time. Class time, that's it. You guys pull that stunt, I'm going to dock more than what you lost for not having it during class. Don't interrupt my classes. I don't like sending students to other classes for that reason. I'm in the middle of teaching. Don't interrupt my class. I'm not going to send you to interrupt somebody else's class. So don't ask me for that nonsense. Now, go ahead. Finish these up. One at a time. I saw somebody out. Here's what I'd like for you to do. Pick one of these to do, but I really want to get through this last one first. Okay, I'll have them all in the notes, but let's take a look at this last one. Okay, can you guys do that one? Come back and try to do those first two if we have time. So everybody jump to the last one, just so we know how to deal with that one. Okay, somebody can walk me through this problem? What's the first thing I need to do? We got to pull out a couple of the tricks now, right? Not just one trick, not just the other trick, both tricks. What do we have to do? Go ahead, Joshua.
Okay, so first you have to change 3 and 9 16ths into a mixed number. I mean, improper fraction.
What's that going to be?
That would be 57 over 16.
57 over 16. Good, then what?
Then you have to change the division symbol to multiplication. And then 3 would equal 3 over 1.
Okay, so, but you can't change the multiplication until you've made it the reciprocal. So this would be 3 over 1, but over here it's going to be 1/3.
Yes.
Okay, then what do we get?
We get 1.
I get 1?
Yes.
So you're saying this is 57 over what?
57 over 48. Yes, 57 over 48.
48? You guys agree?
Yes.
That's what you guys got? Okay, can I simplify that? Are you sure?
No.
I have to double check. But we're almost out of time. I do want to move to this really quickly. Stop. Listen up. I'll put those in the notes really quickly. I want you to answer these questions. What's the reciprocal? 8 over 5. What's the reciprocal? 4. What's the reciprocal? 1 over 9. What's the reciprocal? I caught you. There's an extra step to get to the reciprocal. 2 sevenths. Okay, now look. What does this model? I have, how much on my ruler is this? 1.5. And how is 1.5 broken up? Okay, so how would it, what is that modeling?
3/2 divided by 3.
Think about what we're doing for this lesson. 1.5. 1.5 divided by 3, right? Equals 1/2, or we can also say 1.5 divided by 1/2 equals 3. Okay, there's a couple ways we can do that. Now, before we leave, which is which? 6 divided by 1/2, what is that? That's really 6 times what? So this is what?
12.
Boom. What about this one?
That would be 25.
Thank you. And the last one? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I will add the rest of the problems into the assignment. Have a nice day.
Mr. Evans, can you make sure to show your homeroom the video? They're asking me for the student council video.
Student council video.
They said that they didn't see
What student council video?
the kids that are running for student council.
I didn't show them the video.
Huh?
They're not talking about me.
No,
I-
but